Firstly, on immigration, I believe, as every Brexiteer that I met believes that immigration is a very good thing. It's just that whether it could be controlled or not. I would like to see immigration in this country from all parts of the world, not just from the EU. And I'd like Scotland to be a normal independent country that does not have its rules made by another union. I passed the forward shop tonight and I saw the choice between which union do you want to be in. I don't want to be in either one. Now, I tried to be an economic migrant myself a number of years ago. I tried to get a job in Switzerland and I had to meet certain visa criteria, which I half did with my qualifications. But I respected the fact that if I want to work in their country, I have to prove my contribution. Now, whether we need lots of unqualified, unskilled people, I don't know. Maybe we do. That's fine. But we should decide that, not someone else. Now, given that the Scottish people actually voted on whether the UK should remain in the European Union, not whether Scotland remains in the European Union, because Scotland is not a member of the European Union and does not meet the criteria to be a member. In 2014, the people of Scotland were given the vote on whether Scotland should be ruled from Westminster or ruled from Brussels. The question of independence was not on the paper. That's why I had to vote no, despite the fact I'm very pro-Europe, not pro-EU, and very pro-independent Scotland. Would you not entertain the fact that we should now, seeing how devolution is threatened, seeing how the people of the UK voted for independence, do you not see this as a step towards Scotland become a normal independent country that can enter free trade agreements without having to give up sovereignty?
No, surprisingly enough, and let me tell you why. It's a basic fallacy, and I respect the position of taking. You know, there's one MSP in the SNP I know who's a Brexiteer, Alec Neil. I don't think there are any others, but sorry, he's not an MSP, and nor likely to be at the present moment, though he'd be very welcome, of course. There's a difference between an incorporating union, which is the union that Scotland is in the UK, right, and a confederal union, which is what the European Union is. Now, the European Union is a partnership of equals. You know, if Scotland was a member of the EU, then in many decisions it would have its vote alongside the other 27. It would have a commissioner, it would have a larger number of members of the European Parliament, and it would work cooperatively and collaboratively. Now, you see, I think it's a little old-fashioned, not that I would accuse you of being old-fashioned, but a little old-fashioned to have a view of a sovereign nation which is, you know, just made it into the 19th century, right? The view of a nation is a nation that cooperates with others. It is independent, but it says, what could we do together that would make this work? And actually, in Europe, the decision about how to do that and how successful it would be was a result of 2 world wars. In the 20th century, 2 world wars on the continent of Europe created an enormous question for the leaders of European countries at the end of the Second World War. Now, I heard Martin Schulz make a speech in Berlin about this just over a year ago. And it chimed very strongly with me because I felt exactly the same way about it. One of the reasons I'm a passionate pro-European. And Schulz at this dinner in Berlin, the one that Davis addressed this year, I spoke at last year. And Schulz said, uniquely in the history of the planet, the victor nations, looked at the vanquished nation and stretched out their hand and said, never again. Never again will we allow the type of thing that has destroyed our continent, destroyed the flower of our young people, to happen again. We need to find a way to stop it happening. And that way is the type of close cooperation and collaboration on a range of things so that we can build this free trade area, this bloc, which incidentally, of course, the single market is the creation of Thatcher, amongst others, so that we can find a way of working together and we can tie ourselves together, still with our individual cultures, still with our individual societies, but working closely together. And it's that never again that's really powerful. And it chimes with me, particularly strongly chimes with me, because my father, who was in the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders, at the age of 19, as a sergeant, 19-year-old made up to be a sergeant, on the beach in Dunkirk, gets his leg shot to pieces and is taken off the beach in Dunkirk in a stretcher. And for the rest of his life, he carries that shrapnel wound on his knee. That didn't happen to me as a 19-year-old, and it didn't happen to my son when he was 19-year-old. And in the greatest part, that was because the victor nations, looking at the vanquished nations, said, never again. And if you can build a construct on that, a construct of peace and prosperity, then thank goodness they did that. Thank goodness they did that. Because it's peace and prosperity that's made the difference. Why did the UK join the EU in 1974 and make two failed attempts to join? It made those attempts because economically it was disastrous. It needed to change its economic prospects. So it joined, and indeed de Gaulle vetoed it twice on the grounds that he didn't think, in his words, England was sufficiently European. But it succeeded on the third attempt, and in succeeding, it saw a transformation in its economic prospects, which is what happened from mid-1974 onwards. And we've had this half a century of peace and prosperity. Why would we throw it away? Why would we walk away from it unless there was something so glittering, so wonderfully glittering, that it was going to be worth more than that? Now, it's not in Scottish terms, in migration, because we are simply observing the rules that exist across Europe, and it does allow. Freedom of movement is not total. You see, that's another myth that people have. Freedom of movement is not total. Freedom of movement does not apply to people who can't have jobs and don't have jobs. It doesn't work for them. Right? Freedom of movement is not what it's been sold to be. But it has allowed us to grow our industries and to grow our workforce in Scotland in a way that we couldn't possibly have done before. And the final fallacy of this, and it was Michael Gove who tried this one on me. The final fallacy of this is to say it's unfair. It's unfair to favour Europeans over others. In Gove's inimitable fashion, he said to me, why should we refuse to allow a Bangladeshi builder in when we allow in a Polish plumber? But the problem with that argument is that everybody I've heard use it doesn't want either. They don't want the Bangladeshi builder and they don't want the Polish plumber. They want some sort of fortress that exists there. And if we have a fortress in Scotland migration, we are economically finished. Because we do not have the people. We have an aging population. And we don't have the people. You know, if you look at the Angus soft fruit industry, for example, it springs to my mind, if not to other people's minds. I went to Angus Growers, one of the largest places, a few months ago, start of the strawberry season. 1,000 EU nationals come there every year, and some work here all year, some work in the fish factories in Arbroath, some go elsewhere. This year, Lockie Porter runs it, sent me a letter about 3 weeks ago. This year they've lost £600,000 because some people have gone home early, some people haven't come. It has just not worked. What they're going to lose next year is incredible. So what are they going to do? They're going to move their business. They're going to move their business, part of their business, to Romania or Bulgaria. Not definitely, but that's an option they have. And why is that? Because they can get the labour. There's a world shortage of farm labour, by the way. A world shortage. We're going to cut ourselves off from agricultural labour when there's a world shortage. When in Germany they've just given 10,000 permits to Ukrainians to work in farms, we are going to cut ourselves off. This doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense economically, and it actually doesn't make much sense in terms of common humanity. It's just a mess. So let's not be influenced by this idea that it's normal to be the nation that you're talking about. It's abnormal in the 21st century.